Hello, and welcome once again to the David Messiah YouTube channel, where our watchwords are to teach and to build back up the kingdom of Zion. And my name is Sidney Thomas. I'm the founder and the moderator of this channel. The title of the talk today is Truth versus the Luciferian consensus. Truth versus the Luciferian consensus. And it arises because of what is happening in various places in the world, some of which Most High has had me to talk about in previous uploads, including the last upload, which was entitled the eviction, the throwdown, and Zion. And so I spoke about the eviction of that state of Israel, that modern state of Israel that is illegally occupying that inheritance land of Israel, which does not belong to them. And there we have in spades the idea of the title of this talk, which is, well, the truth says one thing, but the consensus view, the Luciferian consensus view, says another. Because our friend there, Netanyahu, and so many of his co-nationalists have the mistaken idea, first of all, that they are of the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and second of all, that they are entitled to that land that is nowadays called, at least since the Roman occupation, called Palestine. So that's one. Then there's a throwdown, which involves those for whom the 70 weeks of Daniel chapter 9 have sort of expired. Was it verse 17 there? Daniel chapter 9, 70 weeks have been determined, etc. A week there being actually a Shabuah, that 7-week period between Passover and Pentecost. And 3 countries have been, their time essentially on that clock either has just run out or is about to run out. In the case of that state of Israel, their 70-year in effect, but 70 Shabuah in fact, countdown began in 1951 at the time of the Sharafat massacre, when they first sort of encroached into Jerusalem. So that 70-year time actually was up as of 2021. And then the British Crown, they got their 70-year countdown starting at the time of the coronation of Elizabeth II, and that started in 1952. And their countdown came to an end in 2022. And the third countdown was for the United States. And the start of that countdown was August of 1953, when they took down Prime Minister Mossadegh there in Iran to facilitate those oil companies that could then go in there and rape, pillage, and plunder that land as much as they thought fit, and they installed the Shah to facilitate that. Well, their countdown would now end as of roughly the middle of next year, Shabua, which would be 2024. So those countdowns are associated sort of bringing to an end of the rule that they respectively represent. Those have been spoken into existence by what the Most High has given me to speak, and they're now being fulfilled. In my own country of Trinidad and Tobago, we have a problem that has been quite intractable now for some time since independence, and getting worse. And that is a problem of crime, to where our Prime Minister, estimable Prime Minister, who is a Negro, and been guided, he's of the line of the Ashanti, actually, which would make him of the tribe of Benjamin, most likely. He has kind of thrown his hands up in the air, and is made to sort of expostulate, that where crime has been concerning, I mean, it is now has gotten ridiculous, I think was the phrase he used. Because just last week, I think there were like 8 murders in one day or 2 days, or some kind of concerning number like that, and sort of related to that, one fellow, a suspect, who tried to put a hit on the Deputy Commissioner of Prisons and failed. And he was sort of, given the treatment by those policemen that tracked him down, arrested him, and interrogated him, and he was given, such treatment that he has died from blunt force trauma. So basically, you don't need, to be Sherlock Holmes to figure that one out, that they beat him to death. I'm not saying they intended to kill him, but he got enough licks, as we would call it here in Trinidad. What you would say in America, he got such a whooping that basically his heart gave out, and with all kinds of blunt force trauma to and about his body. So the idea was, look, I mean, if it's just an ordinary hit out on the street, criminal versus criminal, that's one thing. But if you're trying to put a hit out on a Deputy Commissioner of Prisons or a police officer, that is a red line too far, and they will be judge, jury, and executioner. And your case will never even go to court, because you will be dead before that happens. I think that's the message he's sending out. So, along with that, we had the Supreme Court, the head of the Supreme Court, making some remarks about the Constitution, and he may or may not have been responding directly or indirectly to remarks that I have made, namely to the effect that our Constitution is a contradiction in terms, because the preamble to the Constitution says one thing, namely that we acknowledge the supremacy of God, and there's only one candidate for the God that is meant, which is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And if you acknowledge the supremacy of God, then some of what is there in the Constitution per se is inconsistent with that, because high among the provisions of the Constitution per se is this guarantee that here every creed and race finds an equal place. So that if you're, for example, a Hindu and you want to set up idols in the land, then according to the Constitution, you have a right to do that. But if we go to Scripture, and if we accept that this land belongs to Israel, which it is because Israelites, the Arawaks so-called, were the first people that came here and laid claim to this land. They were Israelites. So this is Israelite land. Israelite promised land in accordance with Scripture when you know what Scripture has said. And here we have in the book of Leviticus chapter 26, according to that God whose supremacy we acknowledge, verse 1, we have the very plain provision if I can get my Blue Letter Bible app to cooperate. Bear with me, please. Yes, book of Leviticus, chapter 26, verse 1, where we have the plain language. Ye shall make you no idols, nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land to bow down unto it. For I am Yehovah, your God, your Elohim. Well, if the Hindus set up what they call murtis, which are idols, then this is plainly at variance with the law of God. If the Catholics do the same, this also is plainly in violation of the law of God. If the Muslims do the same, as they have their Kaaba stone over there in Mecca, certainly. I don't know if there's any sort of Muslim idol in the land of Trinidad. I'm not per se aware of any, except for those sort of symbols that they have on those minarets and other things that they have at their mosques, look to be idols of some sort. Then that also is against the law of God. If the spiritual Baptists, put up these flags that they put up, which are a kind of idol, although not graven images, but they are symbolic, then that too is questionable in terms of this very plain law of God. So the consensus is, here every creed and race finds an equal place. And if you want to, and you have a right to practice whatever creed you brought to this land from wherever you came. So this is a sort of a guarantee precisely for the Hindus, precisely for the Muslims, precisely for the Catholics, and etc., who came to this land. But this is nevertheless Israelite land. And there is no provision in the law of God of equality. In fact, quite the opposite. Let me go there quickly to Exodus chapter 19. I've made this point before, but some points need to be emphasized again and again. Verse 3, and Moses went up unto God, and Yahweh, that's the proper name for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Who is he talking to? The house of Jacob, the children of Israel. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. Above all people. For all the earth is mine. So he's emphasizing he can do that, for all the earth is his. So he can make this arrangement. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto who? The children of Israel. Nobody else was there. Okay, there were no Christians there, there were no Muslims there. It was a particular seed line. Children of the blood descending from Abraham, from Isaac, and Jacob. And then if you go to Deuteronomy 28, you find the contrary provision that if we fail to keep the law, Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 43, it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. This is in case we fail to keep the law, as was indicated here earlier in verse 15. It says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee. So it is a curse on the contingency that we fail to keep the law of the covenant, that even the stranger in our midst shall get up above thee very high. So there is no equality for the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because there are only two possibilities, either we, and I want to straight away indicate that the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are the Negro. I can prove that. I have proved that in an earlier upload, proving essentially that the Negro is Israelite. So two possibilities: either we keep the law, in which case we would be set high above everybody else, or we fail to keep the law, in which case we would come down very low beneath everybody else. Look at verse 45 and 46. Moreover, all these curses, because there are many others, shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed. Why? Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohah, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Verse 46, and they shall be upon thee for a sign. For a sign. And for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. You understand? So there's no equality for the Negro. That's a simple logic. But there's restoration promised. Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 1, and it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse. So he's also prophesying here that we would be under the curses, which means that even a stranger in our midst would rise up high above us. Why? Because we would not have kept the covenant, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither Yahweh thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto Yahweh thy God, and shalt obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, that then Yahweh thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither Yahweh thy God hath scattered thee. So this is a solemn promise. Verse 5. And Yahweh thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And Yahweh thy God will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed, to love Yahweh thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And by the way, in verse 7 it says, and Yahweh thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And then thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yahweh, and do all his commandments. So the blessing and the curse, both, because there was a time when we were in our ascendancy, when David and Solomon enjoyed the dominion effectively, and then that dominion passed to the twin brother Esau, twin brother of Jacob, and it is as if you like, a member of the Gentile nations, because Esau in effect became a Gentile. The word Gentile means sons of the wicked, who originated there after the flood in the isles of the Gentiles, which were populated by Japhet and his children, but his line was polluted by fallen angel seed. His nominal son Magog was actually the actual son of a fallen angel named Gog. And that polluted line is why the sons of Japhet and the Isles of Japhet, they were not called the Isles of the Gentiles. They're not called the Isles of Japhet, they were called the Isles of the Gentiles. You understand? Because of that pollution. And Esau mixed in with them. We read that in the book of Jasher. Esau's grandson Zepho was made king over the Romim, the Proto-Romans, so to say. And then the children of Romim went and conquered the other tribes of Japhet. So Esau was mixed in with the Gentiles from early on. Esau also was mixed in with the Canaanites, because his first wife was a Canaanite. And that distressed his mother so much, he then went and married a woman of the line of Ishmael. So he mixed in also with the Ishmaelites. And then he went down into Egypt and married an Egyptian. So he also mixed in with the Egyptians, the Hamites. Hamites from Egypt and Hamites also from Canaan. And then, the Japhetites, through the grandson Zepho. So Esau then became, the power-wielding part, because the dominion had been granted to Esau after it was taken away from Jacob. Granted to Esau, and in his capacity, as head of these various Gentile nations now, came against Jacob. Okay, so the four kingdoms of the Gentiles have Esau kind of, mixed in with them from the beginning, from the Babylonians to the Medes and the Persians, to the Greeks, and to the fourth kingdom, which involved, various kings coming and going, but essentially all having that two themes, the Gentiles, number one, and number two, that they mixed in with or deriving from Esau and the dominion that he was given. But Esau's dominion was for a time and times and a half a time, which is roughly 2,500 years. Give or take, it's actually more. Because it's now, we're now in the year 2626 years since Esau first came into his dominion through the Babylonian conquest and exile of Jacob, the house of Judah actually, when they attacked Jerusalem, 2,600 plus years. So had been given to indicate that their time essentially was up. As of the third day of the year 6008 on the Most High's calendar, which was March 25th last year. And that has taken place in the spiritual. And we're just now seeing it unfold in the physical. So this is what we see happening in the world. The various Edomite, which is Edom is another word for Esau, the various Edomite kingdoms which have been wielding the dominion, including that state of Israel, including the British monarchy, including the United States, what they call the Anglosphere or the Anglo-Saxon powers. Okay, they're all now coming down, and it includes as well the Vatican. So that in the first letter that the Most High gave me the first upload on this site was actually a letter, an audio letter of demand upon both the Catholic Church and also that state of Israel. So we see the and in that letter, yes, indeed, the state 1948 state of Israel, which is a Gentile conglomerate, were given in effect a notice of eviction. And the equivalent was given to the Catholic Church, so they're also coming down. And either in that letter or in some other uploads, because he made me to send out an audio letter, one to the heads of state and heads of government of the Commonwealth, which was at the time that Elizabeth died, and another one was to all colonized and formerly colonized peoples, their current and traditional rulers. And in those two uploads, he gave me to say what I've just now quickly recapped about the 70 weeks are determined. 70 weeks for the state of Israel, with the countdown for them starting in 1951, 70 weeks for the British monarchy there, that started in 1952, and 70 weeks, in effect a week being a year, for the United States, with their countdown starting in August 1953, as I've just now mentioned. So the last of those countdowns comes to an end as of 2024. And we're seeing the eviction of Israel, so-called Israel, 1948 state of Israel, which is a Gentile conglomeration. They're being evicted now. They don't quite know it yet. Okay, Britain, in the case of King Charles, we see his reign is at the very least a troubled reign. He was just in Kenya, and of course the Kenyans, are saying, well, I don't know, you all haven't apologized yet for what you did to the Mau Mau's people, the Mau Mau society that was formed to fight the British rule in Kenya. And in the process of putting down the Mau Mau rebellion, they established concentration camps and killed apparently of the order of 1 million of them, and then destroyed the records. Well, the Kenyans are saying, well, hey, you needed at least to apologize. Okay, and hey, maybe we should get, I'm not sure how they've framed it. It may not yet be coming from official government sources, but the people who have not forgotten their brethren, their ancestors who would have suffered, in many cases, the ultimate suffering, which is death, are demanding that the British at the least apologize, and better yet, that they make reparations. And the king made some very wishy-washy kind of a statement, in effect saying that it should never have happened and there was no excuse for it, but it fell about 3 yards short of an apology and no mention of any kind of reparation. And there are those in Britain that think that even that mealy-mouthed kind of of speech that he made, expressing some degree of regret. Even that was going too far. He should not have done that, some say, which doesn't do the British sort of character, very much honor. British can be very prideful and arrogant and very stubborn people. No question about that. I mean, I am willing to give them a pass, bend over backwards, really, because we've all sinned before the Lord. And I'm pretty sure that the Negro, when the Negro had the dominion, that, even our own brethren, the northern tribes, separated from the rule of the son of Solomon there, Rehoboam, who apparently was at the very least vexatious toward them. Okay, to where the northern tribes pulled out of the kingdom. So yeah, we can also be a prideful and arrogant set of people, no doubt. And if you know that you can you can have a certain failing, then it's easier for you now to be willing to overlook and to forgive the same failing in others. And only from that perspective, I'm kind of willing to give the British a pass, or the English rather. And of course, they also, any people that could give us cricket and football, soccer, and boxing by the Queensberry rules, and so forth. I mean, and Shakespeare, they do have a few, good things on their credit side, but that doesn't make them, any less prideful. In fact, perhaps even more prideful, even more arrogant, And so for them now to eat crow, as it were, and not only to apologize, but to cough up reparations when they know they did wrong. They know they did wrong, it's hard for them. And that is, but their time is up. So this is the sort of the crux of what this talk is about, which is the truth versus, and I call it the Luciferian consensus. The Luciferian consensus, in the case here of Trinidad, is here every creed and race find an equal place. And the same idea is there in the United States Constitution. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Well, I just read you where, according to Scripture, the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are not equal to anybody else. Because either they're obeying the law, in which case the Most High Himself will set us above every other people, or in the curses, if we disobey the law, He would set everybody else high above us. So there's no equality for the Negro. And this is what, in terms of the consensus view, here, certainly here in Trinidad, and I'm sure it's equally as well entrenched in the United States, which is a Luciferian view, because it is a view that directly challenges the Most High. Because when the Most High said He would set His chosen people above everybody else, all the other tribes round about took exception to it. And they were egged on by Lucifer. And I could talk about Lucifer, but I won't say much except to say that he's the one that led the rebellion in heaven And he is the one that in effect was carrying forward the idea that that arrangement was unfair. In other words, he is saying that he is more righteous than God. And indeed it is so, and this is why it is now a consensus, and I call it a Luciferian consensus, because it is advancing the idea that we can know better than God. What is the righteous thing? We can't. That is a presumption. And that is a Luciferian consensus that will not stand. And here we have, let me take you to what I should have introduced even earlier. And which should stand as an epigram for this talk. Psalm 119, 142. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. And Daniel chapter 9, this was the sort of preambular prayer of Daniel, which is instructive. Daniel chapter 9 verse 13. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil is come upon us. Yet made we not our prayer before Yahweh our God, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. So we holding fast to this Luciferian consensus that all of us should be equal, rather than falling upon our knees and asking the Lord, well, why, Lord, all this crime? Well, if we are disobeying Leviticus chapter 26 verse 1, and that's not the only thing we are disobeying. The society, the colonial society, hasn't changed very much in the independence period. The colonial society was set up to put the boot upon the neck of the Negro and to keep him down. That's why one of the provisions, early provisions, is called the Decree of Population, and it was instituted by the Spanish in the Spanish period. It's called the Cédula de Población. It provided that any essentially European that came would be granted for every member of the family 36 acres, I think it was, of land for every member of the family, and 32 acres for every member of the family, and 16 acres for every Negro slave they brought with them. And the slaves obviously were slaves who were not granted any title to land. And at the time of emancipation, it wasn't as though the Negro was given at that point title to land. Rather, quite the opposite. They brought in indentured servants, laborers from India, so that, the British did not have to depend that much as they would otherwise have had to depend upon Negro labor and whatever demands the Negro would have been making. So the society in the colonial period put the boot upon the neck upon the Negro to keep us down. And in the independent spirit, that didn't change very much. Because the banks were still not lending to the Negro. Still today. Okay? This is capitalism, free enterprise. And if the Negro has a bad reputation as being not very sort of credit worthy, they don't get loans. It's as simple as that. And that's why in 1970 there was the Black Power Revolution, or uprising, or whatever they want to call it. Okay, so between disobeying the law of God by constitutional writ and consensus, and indeed holding fast, even though we had Negro government and independence, holding fast because their hands were tied in many ways. Holding fast the institutional structures that they were established to keep down the Negro. Okay. In either case, we have brought upon ourselves the wrath of God. As we see here in Daniel chapter 9 is an indication. All this evil is come upon us. Yet made we not our prayer before Yahweh, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. So the Luciferian consensus in this land, and I'm sure it's there, the same, but with slight differences in every country where the Negro has been scattered, including Fiji, including the United States. You name the country. Wherever the Negro has been scattered, the Negro is a quote-unquote problem. And here in these end times, crime has gone through the roof. Most High can fix that very quickly and very easily, but we need to return back unto Him. What does it say in 1 Chronicles? I believe chapter 7 verse 14, that's a famous kind of scripture that everybody knows, but let's bring it anyway. Not 1 Chronicles, must be 2 Chronicles. Huh? If my people who are called by my name here we are, verse 14. If my people, which are called by my name, we have the name of God in us, Yakob. That prefix Iye is the same prefix that is in the name of the Most High, which is Hawa. And Yakob, Jacob, his name was changed to Sharalo, which nowadays we say is Israel. But we have the name of the Most High in us. Sharalo is a suffix there that basically means we are that chosen people. We are the princelings of the Most High. So here's what he's saying. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now don't take that to mean that the onus is now on the criminals, the street criminals who are the cause of so much sort of worry, angst, complaint, and etc., that people are throwing their hands up in the air, it's those of the Luciferian consensus who are running the society and not keeping the law of the Lord, rather holding fast to this Luciferian consensus that basically makes a nonsense of the preamble to our Constitution, where it asserts that, we acknowledge the supremacy of God. But at the very same time, we say, well, everybody has every right to worship whatever idols they want to worship. And it is even more sort of basic than that. We have a criminologist here in this country named Doris Figuera, and I heard him one time make a very perceptive remark. He says the police cannot bring street crime under control in a world where there's a free pass for, in effect, the white-collar criminals. White-collar, C-O-L-L-A-R, the ones with the jacket and the tie. Because those who perpetrating the street crime are not the ones who are bringing in the cocaine. They're not the ones bringing in the guns. They're not the ones who have the capitalization to be behind either the gun trade, the human trafficking trade, or the drug trade. But the powers that be, whether out of complicity with them or whether out of fear of what the white-collar criminals can bring to bear, because the financiers also in the political party, okay, they have ways and means of bringing the politicians to heel. Well, if you can't control those, then according to Doris Figuera, you also will not be able to have the police succeed in bringing street crime under control. That's just the way it is. So it's a mission impossible. But at the real root of it, it is keeping the law of God, which is that truth that is forever. His law is the truth. And that law is forever. So it's a choice that the society has to make, and we have made the wrong choice. And this is not only Trinidad, it's also the United States and elsewhere. Because the Luciferian consensus is indeed a global consensus. This idea of the equality of man. This idea that we all have the right to worship who we want to worship, how we want to worship, regardless of what the law of God says. That is the problem. So 2 Chronicles 7:14 is the crux of the key to the issue. Now, there is a sort of an override, which I just read, Deuteronomy chapter 30, where, basically, but it is saying that we have to return unto God, and then He will return unto us and put the curses that He had put upon us, put those curses instead of those who had been persecuting us. So this is what is about to happen. But even so, He does not guarantee that every Negro is going to enjoy that benefit. Because elsewhere in Scripture we find where it says that 2/3 of us are going to be cut off and die. 1/3 will be sort of, but even that third will go through the fire. This is what the Messiah said. And he let me to know, I think I mentioned it in the previous upload, that easily 99.9% of us are disobeying his law. Okay? But nevertheless, 1/3 will be granted a sort of an escape, a second chance, as it were, but will be put through the fire. And those who have deceit in their heart, those who have hatred in their heart, those who have lies on their tongue, will not be the ones who come into the 1/3. So this is the sort of idea I just wanted to bring to you. And just to let you know also, he wanted me to remind that, the point I made in the previous upload, that when he uses his servants to speak things into existence, this is how, in effect, things are then made to happen in the physical. So that, yes, the ancient prophets put these things down, yes, and they, in that sense, that manifestation had begun. But here now in the latter day, the days of precisely the days that the prophets were speaking about, he needs and he uses, he doesn't need anybody really, but he uses his servants to speak into existence those things which the former prophets had already prophesied. And in some cases, he's given me dates to some of these events, to my embarrassment, because those dates were effectively all being, indicating dates in the spiritual. But we are seeing the manifestation in the physical of those events. So there were some additional events, sort of complementary to, on the other side of the bringing down of Esau and the Edomite kings, which was the raising up, for one, Russia. And he had me in one of the uploads to indicate that Russia was the king of the south. And this was at a time when nobody was saying that. And indeed we now find Russia is that power that can lay claim to being king of the global south. That's the term that's used now in the media. Okay? And also he had me to make, so that also was kind of, speaking something into existence. And the other thing was the NATO's nakedness is exposed. So he had me to talk about that and to show how through the Ukraine war, Russia essentially, as that king of the south, rendered the nakedness of the US and the NATO and that conglomerate of the global West, or the Western powers, who came against Russia and have been beaten down and have been badly exposed, because in effect NATO has no answer militarily to what the Russians put on the ground there in the Ukraine. So just as it was when America came into preeminence in 1945, with literally a big bang when they exploded those two atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That wonderful work, powerful work, not in a sense of admiration, but merely in terms of what it was. Powerful work. That was a sign that America's hegemony had come. Well, in the same way, Russia, through its Kinjal and other hypersonic weapons, to which the Americans and NATO have no answer. Here again we have a powerful work that is a sign of the coming into power, so to say, of Russia as that king of the South. And yes, Russia as that, what the Jews like to call, even though it is non-scriptural, what the Jews like to call Moshiach ben Yosef. So that Brother Putin in effect represents Israel, true Israel, house of Joseph, Ephraim. Okay, that was in fulfillment of that prophecy of Obadiah, verse 18. That Jacob would be a flame, Joseph a fire, and Esau for stubble. So in effect, Russia as that king of the south, as an Israelite power, tribe of Joseph in effect, is the means through which the Most High is bringing down Edom. So, and there was another third one, but it's now slipping my mind in terms of speaking these things into existence. Well, if it's not coming to mind, then it's perhaps not so important. Okay, so with that, I will give all praise, I will give all exaltation unto the Most High God, Yehovah, and to all those who are listening, I say, Shalom.